Hi, dear wise ones. In these wonky times where it can be challenging to connect with our human community for various reasons, I find it comforting to remember that we're part of a broader community of which plants are an intimate part, no matter where you live. So, in a very real sense, our plants are our neighbors, our friends, and our community. So, I wanted to talk about a dear friend, Willow. So there's over 400 species of willow worldwide, at least 30 species in the Pacific Northwest alone, which means it's an important ally and friend to know about. You're probably familiar with some of the more popular cultivated varieties like weeping willow and pussy willow and corkscrew willow. This tree standing behind me is the Pacific willow, which is probably the most common native willow in my neck of the woods in the Pacific Northwest anyways. And the Pacific willow it's often misunderstood and definitely underappreciated. It's often cut down, torn out as a weed tree, and I think it's such a shame, really, because it offers so many valuable services to our community, to our ecosystems, our waterways, our birds, our animals, our plants, and people as well. So the Pacific willow, it grows to be a sprawling mid-sized tree, perhaps 25 years or so, which isn't very long for a tree, but it has this extraordinary capacity to live. You might have seen a big willow cracked in half or fallen down or even cut down, and you think it's dead, but from the base these shoots grow up and it grows an entirely new tree. People joke that you can chip a willow and all the little chips will grow into trees, which isn't entirely true, but it's not far off. You can take cuttings and stick them in the ground, and most likely they'll grow. A cool thing you can do also is take cuttings, soak them in water, and use that water to help jumpstart root growth in plants that you're propagating, because it has this really strong rooting hormone called IBA for short that helps plants grow deeper, stronger roots. Another cool thing you can do is take the cuttings and stick them in the ground and then weave them and bend them as they grow into these living works of art and living furniture. I've actually sat on a living willow throne and it was amazing. So willow loves to grow in areas that has abundant water, so the Pacific Northwest is perfect for that. A good time to harvest is late winter or early spring, so we're in the ideal time for that. And that's because the sap is rising, and both it's easier to harvest the bark as it slips off easier, but also the compounds are the most potent. And not all willows have the same levels of active medicinal compounds. Certainly the wild ones are preferred, and if you ever wonder, you can taste them, chew on the bark a little bit, and you want it to be very, very bitter. Bitter the better. That isn't always a rule of thumb, but in this case it is. So when you're harvesting, you're looking for side shoots. Ideally, I like to harvest from a stump that's been cut down, and they have nice shoots that come up every year with nice tender bark. And harvest a bundle about the diameter of your thumb each branch, and collect enough that you can harvest and process in a few days before it dries out. And we always want to think about doing no harm, right? Really minimizing our impact. How much do I need? And take no more. And to be thoughtful about where you harvest from and what you're going to do with it. And that we're giving thanks to the plants because they're our friends and our community members, and they deserve that at the very least. So once you've given thanks, harvested only what you needed, put it in your basket. You can take it inside, make a cup of tea, put on some nice music or a podcast, and sit and process the bark, from which you can make tinctures, tea, smoking mixes, and a variety of other things. So I'm going to harvest some of these branches behind me, take them into my house, and show you how I process the willow bark. See you in a moment. All right, I'm inside. I've got my cup of tea here. This time it's marshmallow root with licorice and a little bit of Cleaver's glycerite, so it's a little desserty. All right, so I have a little bundle of these willow branches, and you'll find your own way. So I like to hold the knife up and down and the branch at an angle nice and firmly and scrape it down, right? So I started that end, so we'll do this end. So I hold it like this on the cutting board and scrape down. You can try. And you'll see that it goes right down to the white, and you want to get all the way through the green inner bark right down to the white. Depending on the grain of the branch, sometimes you go towards you. And this is the process. I wish you could smell it right now. It has this beautiful, lush, green smell. It also smells kind of like licorice. Yeah. And so when you get a little section here done, these little bits, here they are. I'll put them in my bowl. Here's my bowl. And when I have a good amount, I'll put it over the heater here next to my table and just fluff it a couple times a day, and it takes a few days to dry. And this is the process. It's nice to do with friends while listening to podcasts in these evenings. They're still getting dark a little bit early. And you might be wondering, why is a mental health counselor talking about plant medicine at all, and willow bark specifically? So I happen to know that our systems are integrated, right? I'm sure you know that as well. And they all work together. We can't compartmentalize our mind from our heart, from our stomach, from our nervous system. They all work together. And so willow, its active ingredient is salicylic acid, which is aspirin, right? And so which means it helps with inflammation and pain, and headaches, and symptoms associated with the flu. It's also good for UTI infections. You can gargle it if you have sores in your mouth. And so not only is it providing something for our system that can help it live more easily and less pain with less inflammation, but it's a form that's easily accessible to the body. It's also empowering. Like if you think about willow, it has this huge vitality to live, right? It provides resources that other plants can live. It puts a network of roots surrounding it to help other plants stabilize. It drops abundant leaves to nourish the ground. And it's really hard to not feel the contagious vitality of willow. And so I believe willow is a great medicine. I talked about earlier in the video that it's prolific all over the world. It's highly effective. It's easy to harvest. It's sustainable to harvest. It smells lovely. So tinctures are really easy to make. You do 1 part fresh bark to 2 parts 75% alcohol. Put it in a jar and soak it for, I say 2 months. That's what I like to do. If it's dried bark, you would do 1 part bark and 5 parts at 50% alcohol. Because there's no moisture in the bark if it's dried. You can also just dry it and make a tea. It's a bit bitter. I don't mind it, but I like bitter. You can also, believe it or not, smoke it. I like to use a little pipe if I really need a quick pain relief or a relaxant. It goes quickly into the mucous membranes. And it's satisfying. Like I said, it smells a bit like licorice. The fresh stuff, has a really potent smell with a green edge to it. But I just want opportunities for people to feel empowered in their lives, especially in these times where there's so much uncertainty, that this is something that we can step outside, feel the earth under our feet, connect with these living beings, know that we can make medicine that supports our systems, supports our families, supports our communities in a way that's sustainable. And so I hope you continue to find ways to feel healthy and empowered in your life. And I hope even in some small way this video has helped with that. See you soon.